Buying the wrong home in Denver can cost you tens of thousands of dollars. There can be problems with houses that inspectors don't even catch. And so this is the video all about potential problems and of course how to avoid them, because I am here to protect you as your realtor. I've been selling homes for the last 7 years and I've gone through a ton of different inspectors because they didn't catch things. I have a whole host of solutions for people who are buying, who are a little bit worried about maybe making the wrong decision. And I want to help you prevent buying a lemon. So this video is going to outline for you the lucky number 13 issues that might come up when you go to buy a property in the Denver area. I'm breaking down the housing trap that are easy to miss, like structural issues, location issues that might have to do with the soil, the way something was built based on the year it was built, and other major areas of neglect, because I want to protect you as my home buyer so that you're really happy in the place that you live, not just the location, but also the house, so it doesn't cost you tons and tons of money once you move in. All right, so come along with me because I'm going to take a tour of a few different houses that have some of these issues, drive a few areas so you can see exactly what I'm talking about. Okay, I'm down here in a basement, and what I want to point out is that an inspector should really pay attention to the floorboards, because this is where you'll see mold. Now, the interesting part about mold in Denver is that it's very rare. And the reason it's rare is because it's such a dry climate. I mean, you need lotion on your hands constantly, chapstick carry around with you everywhere. But mold is caused specifically from leaks that happen over a long period of time. If there is a leak like this, for example, there we go, kind of see it. What will happen is that will just drip constantly on those floorboards and cause major issues with the structure of the house, and also the spores of mold can get into the air. We want to look for mold in basement areas, all of the areas that have major plumbing, and crawl spaces. Sometimes this is around water heaters as well. Using an air spore test can accurately catch mold, and this is really dangerous for your body. Breathing in mold can cause major health issues. So mitigation is something that you need to take care of if you are a homeowner that has some sort of leak in your house. And it's not incredibly expensive. It basically just sprays something on the mold to kill it. And they use HEPA vacuuming and then an air scrubbing that will actually get it out of the area. And then honestly, the most expensive part of mold remediation is rebuilding whatever it happens to be. So for example, if there were mold on the floorboards here, we would see darkened black floorboards. And this one doesn't have so much of it, it just has a tiny bit of water damage. But the mold specifically, you would just spray something on that and then hopefully not have to cut it out. But if it's wet or soggy, you definitely have to cut it out. When you're looking at a house, it's really easy for an inspector to just say everything is fine, and then they will say specifically, you should have this house tested for mold. And so I think it's a smart idea. Now, the problem with mold tests is that they always will tell you that there is some sort of mold in the air. And so you have to research what exactly are the limits on mold in the air, because there will naturally be some mold spores in the air in any home, especially in a basement area. All right, next up, I'm going to talk about a radon mitigation system. Radon is a toxic gas and it is the leading cause of lung cancer. So it definitely needs to be mitigated in the case that you find it in a home. I would throw this in the, yes, you can still buy the home category, but you need to have this taken care of before you do so. The testing specifically requires 48 hours and it has continuous air computer monitor that will record how much radon is in the home. And you have to keep the doors closed at all times during this test. If radon levels come back over 4, then immediate action is required. You should get the home mitigated. And mitigation is actually relatively simple. You seal the entire basement because the gas comes in through the walls or through the crawl space. Then you provide a ventilation fan that literally pulls the air out of the home. Most homes in Denver honestly sit on uranium-rich soil, which does bring radon gases into the homes. And so don't buy a house without doing this test. Next up on our list are homes with structural concerns. Colorado is on a fault line, which you might not realize, but that's how the mountains are created. And in that fault line, movement is obviously occurring. The soil here in the Denver metro area has something called bentonite clay in it. When the soil gets wet, it expands aggressively. So, major structural issues. One of the things you'll notice is major cracks in foundation walls. This one is just from the window you'll see here and doesn't have a major structural issue to it. And I know that because I have a structural engineer on hire for me, so that in the case that I have a question about whether a home has a structural issue or not, I just get my structural engineer out and they speak with my clients and write a full report and basically explain to the client if there are any potential issues and what can be done about it. Now, the interesting part about structural issues is that when they are repaired correctly, the home is actually much more stable than any other home in the neighborhood. But the problem is that structural repairs can cost $15,000, $20,000. So what you want to look for with structure are a few major items. Sinking slabs, like the floor, when you walk on it, you would have to notice if you put a ball on it, if the ball would roll a certain direction. That's a really good way to tell if the property has some sort of structural issue. Also, whether you can open and close the doors well. Opening and closing doors and being able to tell how well they align will help you know if the home has some sort of structural issue also, because the movement will occur mostly in door frames and cracks in the walls. The other thing that you'll notice about structural integrity of homes that were built later in the 2000s is that they are built floating above the slab. So this one is not floating above the slab. You'll notice it's literally got the concrete and then the frame right on top of it. That will cause issues for when the soil expands. If there is movement in the slab, then it will have an effect on the rest of the frame of the home. Honestly, I think that the worst part of the structural issues in the Denver area is if you don't know about them. And that's why it can be really scary for people who are buying a house and they aren't really sure what they need to do. So having that structural engineer in my back pocket has just been an absolute game changer for my clients. I'm gonna take you outside because I wanna show you a couple of other things that you should notice when you're looking at structural concerns with a property. Now, we just had a big snow, and so what you'll notice is that this is a little bit wet here, but it's actually draining correctly, but it should be draining further away from the house. Anytime you have standing water by the home, it can seep into the foundation and cause issues. People will ask me all the time if cracks in patios or driveways are an issue. And to be honest, the answer is usually no, because the patios and driveways are not connected to the foundation of the home. So are they going to crack and will you have to replace them? Yes, you will. And it could cost you $10,000, $15,000. So you need to be aware of that, but it isn't an issue for the integrity of the home. So that's good news. All right, next on our list is where your property lands in relationship to trees and forests. And the reason this is so important is that we are in a huge fire risk here in the Rocky Mountains. We've had an incredible drought in 2026, and the fire risk is very immense. Marshall fire victims in the Broomfield area had over 200 homes that burned down, and Deer Creek was also a huge fire in 2024. So there are some major concerns. Am I concerned about your Denver or your suburban home burning down? Not necessarily. However, mountain homes or homes that are near the foothills, and I mean specifically areas like Deer Creek, Roxborough Park, Ken Carroll, Morrison, Golden, and Boulder areas. Definitely, if you are in a forest, you should be concerned about fire risk. There are ways to make your home fire resistant. For example, not having big trees hanging over your property. There's a 15-foot requirement for trees to be away from your home. And these things can really prevent wildfire threats. However, another huge issue for these kind of properties is homeowners insurance premiums. People who had their homes burned down in the Marshall Fire had some very sad situations because they didn't have the correct policy written and their home had appreciated so much that they weren't able to get the full replacement cost of their home. Not only that, having your home in a risk area for fires can cause your insurance premiums to go $2,000 to $4,000 more each year. So if you are going to buy a house that's in one of these beautiful mountain areas, definitely make sure that you consult with a mitigation expert so you can protect your home from wildfires and have a fire evacuation plan in the case that you do have to leave your home in a fire risk. All right, let's go back downstairs now because I want to show you what asbestos might look like. Asbestos is a material that they used to use in homes that were built in before the 80s. And the reason that this is such a problem is it is incredibly cancerous, but it's only cancerous if you breathe in the actual dust. When you breathe in the dust, the asbestos fibers can cause permanent lung damage. And it was typically made during the 1960s. And it's literally put into the walls. They just had a different way of building back then, and they didn't realize that it was so bad for us. Right now, where I'm standing, there's not any major danger, which is great. But if I were to cut into the walls here, then it could potentially be very bad for my health. So you're definitely not going to want to buy a house that has asbestos in it. You should do a asbestos test, of course. And then if you do buy a house that has asbestos, because you can, and people do all the time, you just have to plan on either mitigating for it, which could cost $15,000, or you could just decide not to cut into any of the drywall. One place that has a lot of asbestos is this popcorn kind of ceiling. You can see it. Next up is lead-based paint. Aren't the walls beautiful? They've been freshly painted here, but if you decided you wanted to cut into the walls or sand the walls down for wallpaper or something like that, you probably should be aware that the lead-based paint in the walls can cause permanent neurological damage to children. We have an entire disclosure system saying that there probably is lead-based paint in any home that was built before 1984. In fact, FHA lenders will not allow a buyer to purchase a property if there are paint chips anywhere on the property if it was built before that time frame, because they're so damaging. So what you do is you look for paint chips along windowsills or anywhere on the exterior. All right, let's talk about electrical issues now, because homes that are not up to code will definitely get flagged by an inspector, and electrical issues can be a major fire risk for any home, really. So there are all kinds of new codes that we have now. And what you want to look for are things like a Federal Pacific panel. That could cost you $7,000 or so in order to replace. Breakers can be a major issue. You don't want them to trip during power surges or power outages. Aluminum wire pigtailing can cost roughly $3,000 in order to take care of. Newer panels can be really important and actually very difficult to install. I just had this one estimated at $9,000 to replace. And also, this is actually a pretty well done electrical system here, but you can see that the wiring goes all the way up to the poles. It's not underground here because this is an older home. And of course, the issue with that is that if there are trees hitting that wiring, it can cause a fire. There is so much fear around making a bad purchase that I've put together a list of my favorite contractors. And these are not inspectors. These are people who have extensive expertise around that specific topic, whether it's a structural engineer or a roofer or an electrician. They will come in and they will actually do an inspection on your property so that you can feel really comfortable moving forward. So if you just want this list of the warning signs and general costs of some of these repairs or connection to some of these contractors, download my free buyer's guide because all of that information is in there. And if you're a seller, I will do all of those pre-inspections for you so that you don't have to worry about that. Another thing you should know is that an inspection objection is literally the list of problems you have with a house. So while some of these houses I'm saying, maybe you shouldn't buy them if they have these major issues to them, you can also decide what exactly is that worth to me. Let's say you love the location, you love the layout, it's a perfect price, perfect home for your family, but you're wanting to make repairs of these items. Well, maybe you ask the seller to help you make some of these repairs either prior to moving in, or you get some cash and you do them yourself. And that's what I'm here to help you with. Okay, moving into a couple of these problems that you can't necessarily see, but you definitely should be aware of. Sewer issues can cost $30,000 and they literally will dig up your entire front yard in order to take care of this. And sometimes the sidewalk and all the way out to the street. So we all know, our sewer system underground goes from our main line of our house out to the main line for the city that you happen to be in. Well, sewers are built differently based on the year. Some of them are built with these clay pipes, and roots can sneak into the clay pipes and cause major damage and cause buildup. My sweet parents unfortunately had this happen and their basement flooded, and it cost them a ton of money to dig up that sewer line and replace it. I've had other clients who had to have the sewer repaired and it was just a certain section of it, and the way that worked was it had a specific offset. So if you can imagine, the sewer is a cylinder and then it cracks, and so one part of it is slightly lower or higher than the other, and the reason it just can cause a little bit of extra buildup in that little section right there. So you really should have a sewer scope done. Should you not buy a house because there's a sewer issue? It's up to you. I mean, I don't personally want to jump into a huge expense right when I purchase a home. But again, that's why having all of the information is incredibly important. Next up, meth houses. And this is a very sad topic. It should be disclosed to you legally speaking, and there is a list you can find, which I will help you. But meth lab remediation can cost over $30,000 total. And so I would say, don't even bother going to look at one of those properties. If it's disclosed in the public remarks or in the private remarks and your agent tells you, just don't go look at it because it can be a major health issue for you or your family. Next up are areas that might be of concern. And I want to talk specifically about the Rocky Flats area in Arvada. Rocky Flats was a former nuclear site, and they have residual plutonium soil contamination. So neighborhoods that are being built near Rocky Flats right now are currently undergoing environmental scrutiny. There are no basements in these areas because the contamination can be in the soil. And so you might want to be aware before you purchase in these areas. There's also issues where properties were built on old landfills, and so there's no basements in those areas either. And methane gas levels can be really high. So it's important to do your research about what was under that neighborhood before it was built, especially if it's a relatively newer neighborhood. Next up are roofs, and you should definitely not buy a house that needs a new roof. And here's why. Your insurance will cover a new roof only if the damage occurred while you were living in the house. We have a ton of hailstorms in Colorado, and roofs get replaced, I don't know, every 5 to 7 years. So if a home has hail damage on it, don't buy it. I just helped a client walk away from a contract because the seller refused to get the roof replaced. Now, I will tell you on a side note, the seller came around and eventually said, yep, we will replace the roof for you. But there's no way I was gonna let my clients buy this house and put on their own roof. That's easily $15,000. And an insurance company might refuse to replace a roof if it's an incredibly old roof. I had another client whose insurance company covered the cost of the roof, but their deductible was incredibly high. Why do people do that? Well, because they want to have a lower monthly payment or a lower premium, so they choose a higher deductible. Well, that's fine until you go to sell your house and now you need a new roof and your deductible is $10,000. So yes, you kind of have to eat it at that point if you're the seller, because I am for sure not letting my buyers buy a house that has hail damage. One of those contractors that I mentioned that I have in my buyer's guide is a roofer who can look to see if the area specifically has had hail damage in it and help you get an idea if that claim would be covered. And she just helped one of my buyers get a brand new roof on their new house. So download that guide here and you'll get all of the great contractors, including this awesome roofer who will help you out. This isn't necessarily the worst thing ever. Buying your home in a location that is a challenge might not be that big of a deal to you. And I would just say it's fine. If you want to buy a house that's directly across the street from a school and you're okay with the loud noises of kids throughout the day, but you're super excited because now you can send your kids across the street to play at the park, I think that's fantastic. But be aware, not everybody is going to be okay with that. Other issues might include busy highways or backing to main roads. People do get a little bit concerned. I had to discount a house one time that was backing to Broadway, and people just didn't like all of the busy noise. The benefit to a house backing to a busy road is that then you don't have neighbors right behind you, so it feels a little bit more spacious, but it's something to be aware of because real estate is really always about location, 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 right? And it's not always about the noise. Sometimes it's about the congestion of the highway or the stress on the infrastructure, the shops and stores around you. A lot of areas of Denver are gentrifying, which means they are being basically scraped and then redone so that they are feeling newer and easier to access. But there are a lot of areas where pulling into your neighborhood King Soopers or grocery store can feel very uncomfortable. It's hard to get into, parking is difficult. And so those are really important things to be aware of when you are looking for a home. I have a scavenger hunt of a couple of different areas and I would love to share it with you. And basically what you do is you drive around to a coffee shop, a local restaurant, a couple houses that are for sale, and maybe a good place to walk. The whole idea is that you get familiarized with the area. So send me a message, text me, and let me know if you want that scavenger hunt. I'm still working on all of the areas, so that's a work in progress for sure. Okay, last thing I want to mention is watch out for properties that have HOAs. I have an entire another video on buying a home that has an HOA, but I just want to tell you specifically to look for low reserve balances and any issues with special assessments that might be coming up. Because if you have a community that covers the roof and the exterior, let's say all of the decks and stairs need to be painted or refinished in an entire complex, that can cost a community hundreds of thousands of dollars. And unless they have enough in their reserve budget to cover that, that probably means that the homeowners are going to have to pay for that cost. The other thing is they need to have an insurance deductible that can be paid out of that reserves budget. Now, I am not a financial analyst for HOA communities, and so it's really important to look over all of the budget paperwork and all of the HOA paperwork that you get. It works like this. Once you go under contract, you get all of the documents from the HOA and you have a good week or so to review them. You're not gonna know those answers before you go under contract. A lot of people would love it if you could find them out beforehand, but you have the right as a buyer to cancel the contract if you don't like it, if you think that you're going to end up owing a lot of extra money. And on a side note, I recently helped a client purchase a home where the HOA was involved in an arbitration with the builder. There are builders out there who don't have fantastic warranty policies, and maybe they have some builder defects. And so this HOA specifically was suing the builder so that the builder would come take care of some major things in the community. That can be a personal choice as well. If you are comfortable with that risk and you love the property, then maybe you go forward with buying it. But that's really how all of this works, right? Anytime you are making a big, huge purchase, you are taking a risk, and everybody has a different version of risk tolerance. Some people are okay buying an incredibly older home and just putting some love into it and some money, of course. Other people are less comfortable with that. They want a brand new home. They want everything to be perfect and taken care of by the builder. And so if they have to drive a little further, that's okay with them. So that's what I'm here for. I'm here to help you figure out where exactly your comfort level is and also to help protect you. It's not just about letting the inspector do their job, because honestly, sometimes they do a bad job. I will just tell you that. Knowing what to look for and having the right guidance means you can find an amazing home without these hidden costs. If you're thinking about buying in Denver, watch the next video where I break down exactly which questions every buyer should be asking before they make an offer.